I'm Dave Straley, and this is our continuing series of recording sort of history of Long Beach Crew, both Long Beach State, which became California State University, and Long Beach, but has always been Long Beach Crew, Long Beach State Crew. And we're recording, and I'm with Tom McKibbon here, one of the great legendary people of, in my opinion, right up there with Lochner and Archer and all the other names. For the amount of time and effort and contribution he's made to the state crews through the years and just rowing in total in general. One of my eyes. And it's an honor to be here to be able to interview. The purpose of these interviews is to record, we've sort of keyed in on three characteristics. One is the camaraderie that existed during the years at Long Beach in the rowing community. The other is to go over the dedication, what it took to be a good rower and to excel. And then the third is the achievements. And we at Long Beach had some people who have a good international string of achievements, and Tom McKibbon is one of them. I generally start out with, when was the first time you wrote?
We grew up in Michigan and got married. Jen and I dated her when she was 13, kissed her the first night. We got married when she was 18. A year later, we loaded all our furniture and piano and encyclopedias and came out to California to go to school, both to Arlington College and to Long Beach State concurrently. And when I went to school, I walked by a bulletin board and there was a mimeograph, the blue and white mimeograph, and it had a picture of maybe the 60 crew, varsity, and it said, crew builds men, men build crew, and no experience necessary, which was my part. 6 feet or taller is advantageous. And so I came back to our apartment and I said to Jan, I think I found my sport. I think I know about this rowing because it's Harvard and Yale and Oxford and Cambridge. And she said, well, how do you know that? And I said, I don't know, I know that.
And you hadn't been in a boat?
I hadn't been in a boat, no, but there's another whole story about this. And so I went down to the boathouse and there was Bill, and so he kind of set me up on a rowing machine. Remember the ones that were on the side of the dock?
No.
Oh, okay, but they were
this is the old boathouse.
Yeah, the old boathouse.
Pre-Olympic, pre-Olympic.
It was the boathouse that was used in the 1932 Olympics.
Yes.
Yeah, when Cal won. And so he put me there and showed me a couple of row things, and so I did what I could do, and I was doing it, and nobody seemed to come back. And so I just got up and went home, and I told Jen, I said, I found my sport. Because I played football in high school, and I didn't like it. I didn't like hurting people, and I didn't like being hurt.
Right.
I wasn't a contact kind of person. But rowing eventually offered all the great things that my personal needs were fulfilled by rowing. But so the next day, and I was a freshman. One of the freshmen in the 7 seat was sick, and so Bill put me in the 7 seat of the 8 because there were no spares. And they had all been rowing in the fall, and of course I'd never been in a boat, and I would give anything to have this filmed because Bill was taking pictures that day, movies, from the launch, and I don't know how many times I hit the stroke guy in the back with the oar. His name was Bill Piper, but his nickname was Piper Rabbit because he would shoot his slide so fast, and of course I had no idea what I was doing, and so the next day I was a little bit better, but still. I hadn't caught any crabs for a whole workout, and so I thought I was much improved. And the next day we had a race.
Oh wow!
Down with Orange Coast College in San Diego State.
What year is this? This is
61.
61. Okay.
You get your freshman letter.
Okay.
And your 64 was my letter.
Okay.
And so the crew won over San Diego State and Orange Coast College, and it had nothing to do with me. As a matter of fact, the day after I started, Ed Graham started. Ed stroked our great 60 62 crew,
Okay.
and they lost. But I mean, the winning and losing had nothing to do with whether Ed was better or worse than I was. But yeah, so what?
This is your first, you're a freshman, and this is your first race
Yeah.
in Orange Coast College.
In the canal here in Newport.
And you won. And did you race for shirts?
Yes. Oh,
So-
and that's another story.
So-
That's another story. And so the Coast guys had these beautiful shirts with this almost silk,
Right.
with their school colors on the white shirts. And we asked them, and I didn't know the difference, but I remember someone asking shirts, and they said yes, and because they knew they weren't going to lose. But when we won, they had a Quonset hut for a boathouse, which was not much of a boathouse then. And they went and got their old workout shirts that had been stencil spray painted, and they gave it to me. And this guy, I remember him handing this to me, and I said, "I got almost 3 solid days in this sport, and you're going to give me this piece of junk?" I dip it in the water and I threw it to him, and I said, "I want your shirt, the one you bet." And he said, "No, the coach won't let us do that." And I said, "Okay, we know where we started this. I don't know where we're going to go, but I know you're not going to go very far." So that was it. But where I learned about the sport, and this is a little presumption on my part, when we moved my mother out of her house in Detroit, up in the attic, I found a magazine which was almost like a comic book. It was really a comic book, and on the cover was a photograph of the 1929 Columbia crew with Horace Davenport and Bill, I can't remember his name, wonderful guy, stayed in his house many times in New York. And they were planning to make the Olympic team. As it turned out, Cal got the spot. But when you open the page, here were all the Disney characters, Mickey and Minnie, and they were all in 8s. And I think that's where I must have, for the first time,
As a child.
read about the Ivy League and in a little book. Someplace, we brought that book back at someplace in the archives. It's somewhere here, and I know Peter wanted it, but I'd love to look at it again. I know it existed. We just can't find it. Haven't looked really. So that's the story.
All right. So you're a freshman. You rode. You win your first race. You've got Ed Graham is a freshman also.
No, it's in the JV.
Oh, it's in the JV boat.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next, I remember when I started rowing that your 63 or 64 boat was actually placed very high in the Western Sprints.
Well, actually, the best boat that I rode in,
Yes.
even though the third and the fourth boats maybe were bigger and faster, they just didn't have the magic, was the 1962 crew.
Okay.
And that crew, I mean, we had all different sizes. And I remember Bill Totten was our 7-man. He was a bona fide 6'4" or so, or
Okay.
tall enough to row in anybody's boat. And he came up to me after my freshman year and he said, "Are you coming up for crew?" And I said, "Well, I'm thinking about it, but I got a really heavy load." And he says, "No, you got to come up because then we'll have a deep 6." Meaning, I think what he meant is our average would be 6 feet, not the
Okay.
because Phil and Don and some others, Boston weren't tall. But we had a few big guys, Ed Graham and Bill Totten and Chris Smith. But that was a magical crew, and we beat Cal on their home course in the estuary by, I think, 13 seconds.
Wow.
I mean, that number comes up a lot in my numbers of who beat whom. But and I remember the Cal coach saying when we were freshmen we rode such a high stroke and we were so gangly and that we didn't look great. But he said these guys are going to be good because they held it up over a 40 the whole 2,000 meters. And then when we went up, the boat we beat wasn't their best varsity. It was their sophomore boat that won their inter-squad race. So they probably raced the freshmen, like Cal and Washington did all those years.
Okay.
The freshman boat, sophomore boat, junior boat, and senior boat. And the sophomores won, and so that's the boat we beat. We still got a shirt. It wasn't really a Cal shirt.
Sure. Okay.
It was not quite an Orange Coast College spray shirt, but we drove up there, and as we came back, we'd stop by Oranges, along Highway 1 or
Right.
101. And we'd always open the trunk to see if the shirts were still there. So I was hooked in. I mean, it was so in tune with my spirit and my nature that, and the '62 crew had that swing that the other boats didn't have. They were bigger, stronger in the weight room, and more experienced. But what happened in the U.S. Did we do well in the finals? Our sixth man, Dick Neal, got the 14-day measles a week before the race, and we had not lost a race, and our JV had not won a race, and so we had to have someone come out of the JV into the varsity, and it was our sixth man, one of the engine room guys that we lost on the port side, and we got this young man, had long hair, which was just against everything the varsity, we had all the Princeton crew cuts, yeah, and so we spent all of our energy trying to make a varsity out of this guy. Poor guy. I mean, he was just thrown into a bad situation, but he couldn't row well enough, so they moved him back in toward the bow, where his puddle and he wouldn't have trouble getting over somebody else's puddle. And you see pictures off the bridge at the Western Sprints, and our coxswain's on the full rudder because his side was too weak. And we had great hopes. I mean, we were written up, a Cinderella crew, Rags to Riches crew, and all the major magazines around the country, from the New York Times to...
So not just Emmett Smith, right?
Oh, no, Emmett. You gotta love Emmett, though. Emmett was a good guy.
He was.
Yeah.
He was.
He would always start out like, "What do you think about the weather?" And I would say, "Looks like a good day to have a race." He said, "Yeah, it does, doesn't it?" But they broke the mold when they cast Emmett. He's a wonderful man.
So you were a Cinderella crew. So '64, you finished in the finals, or you were in Western Sprint finals, even with the...
We were beaten by Cal Washington and British Columbia.
Okay. So there were four, came in fourth. And that was probably the best that Long Beach had finished in the Western Sprints from its inception in 57.
Well, I know for sure it's the first time we beat Cal. I don't know. I heard John mention in his interview that they beat Cal. Did you guys beat Cal?
Yes. No, the 69 crew beat Cal. We did. Okay. Yes, and the 70 crew beat Cal too, but not in a bilateral. It was in the Western Sprints. We came in third, and Cal didn't even make it to the finals that year. So
that's right. With Patty Gray? Or was it?
No.
It was the Long Beach kid. Jim. What you know who he is? The big dog.
Kelly Moore
came out of Wilson High.
There was a Kelly Moore who had gone to Cal and nearly flunked out, and came to Long Beach, sat out a year at Cal, came to Long Beach and re-enrolled, and he tentatively was going to row with us, but he didn't, and then he went back to Cal, got his grades up, and went back to Cal, and I think he was the stroke for the Cal boat. It was a bad year.
I know Bruce Owens came out of Cal. He stroked our boat in '64.
Okay, it was a bad year for Cal, so that was no.
Jim Lemon was the coach.
Okay.
Yeah, he rowed at Wilson High School or something under Pete Archer.
We went up and raced against St. Mary's in the estuary, whatever the Cal thing was.
Terrible body of water.
It was, and the Cal was racing Irvine or racing somebody else, and there was talk about, okay, we'll race St. Mary's and you race them, and then we'll race, the two winners will race again, but they do a third race, but that didn't happen.
But a lot of history there, I mean, you think about what those pioneers, first of all, Pete from the 32 Olympics coaching, five clubs at a time, five different schools, and every one of those schools thought that he was coaching them only. I mean, he wanted them to win, and he was just really a master. And he had all the boats after the Olympics to use, and the equipment in the old dock down at the end of the stadium. But I think the real contribution was from Bill Lockyer, who was one of the most marvelous men I've ever met, and I've met some wonderful people in my travels. I put him up there in the same category, in a very different way from George Pocock. But he just contributed to your whole life being, and it didn't just end at the end of the season. I still feel and act differently than I probably would have had I not known
Bill
out there. And then there was this other old guy, the Major Al Sievert, who was a First World War Canadian fighter pilot. And he knew all these guys, Rickenbacker and Corrigan, and he used to tell stories about how they put up hot air balloons. And he did Hollywood stuff and everything, but he was a bachelor and would come down and drink his little can of ale out of a brown bag. And he helped me get
At the boathouse?
At the boathouse.
The old boathouse?
No, it was finally at the new boathouse.
At the new
was still
boathouse,
around.
too.
The new
Okay.
boathouse, too, yeah. But mainly at the old boathouse. And he helped me buy my first single from a guy, Dick Lewis, down here in Newport. And we worked 6 weeks on it to fix it. And then he went north for some reason. I don't know if it was vacation, but maybe he was an architect, so I don't know if it was business or what. And I put the boat in the water without him. He came back, he was furious. He said, "What? No champagne?" No. You know, he's just a class act. But he used to sail his boat across the North Atlantic, he and another kid,
Oh, wow.
to watch a race in Portugal.
Huh.
And he was all upset. He says, because we could only have tea 3 times. Because it was, you were heeled over. Such a bad storm and everything. But he started rowing in Newport. He had Kelly out here and Wisconsin. And it was like the first crew classic.
Yeah, did he help Long Beach? He was Long Beach State, like your boat of '62.
No, he was the guy who just sat over on the side.
Okay.
Kind of like when you, not nearly with the influence that Pocock had when you read the Boys in the Boat. But Pocock was always there with the, and that was what the Major was. But I mean, I don't mean to put him on.
Yeah.
In his own life, he was at that grand scale, but not in rowing. When he started a hockey league for kids in Pasadena. When you look back at his accomplishments, and he was there as a mentor for me particularly because I have Canadian blood, and he was a Canadian, and my family was from the Ottawa Valley.
So did you tie up with him as a college student, or was that after when you?
As soon as I was a freshman.
As soon as you were a freshman. Okay.
Yeah, and until he died. Matter of fact, well, there's a lot of stories I can tell you about the Major, but he was one of my biggest influences. He would show me how to mix ochre to cover up a piece of wet rot. It was black on the boat. You could almost paint it over so it would look good.
Now in 60, 61, 62, are you rowing in Pococks or?
Yeah, Pococks.
Okay.
Well, it was one boat. I think it was a Japanese boat. I was talking to John. He remembered the name of it. And that was our freshman boat.
Okay.
And I remember we got a new kind of a cedar boat from Pocock, and the varsity were using it, and the freshmen had a collision with the varsity. I don't think I slept for 3 nights. I felt so guilty about that sacred boat, the Pocock boat that was, one-piece cedar, the full length. And then some years later, I think USC bought maybe the last cedar speeder that Pocock made. And they were driving it home, and they made a sharp turn, and the stern hit a telephone pole as they were swinging. The trailer was turning, and then somehow Long Beach ended up with it. And John Van Blum took it completely. He took all the superstructure out of it. He built all these stretchers to hold the skin, and then he completely rebuilt the boat as if he were Pocock. And it was a marvelous job. And then, kind of as a compliment, and at least I took it as a compliment, they named it the McKibbon.
Oh.
And I think they did it because I was older than everybody.
Right.
I had gone to trade school for 4 years before I started college. And because in the Oarsman at one point, one of the Detroit writers called me a hoary old sweet veteran when we were coming up, and it was kind of like this old boat, and it kind of, we were kind of made for each other. I don't know whatever happened to it. But one nice story is my son rowed for one semester, for 1 year down at Orange Coast College.
Okay.
And he came up and raced in Long Beach at the Christmas Regatta. And one of his friends said, "Hey, McKibbon, look over there," and look over and the McKibbon name
on the boat, on the shell. Huh.
That was a nice little story. Where it went, I don't know, but yeah, they were Pococks.
All right. So then,
except that one Japanese boat.
All right. Then, so the '62 boat gets invited to the IRA.
Yes.
They have an IRA back then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it gets invited to the IRA, but
I thought we should go to the Dad Vale, but yeah, it was
okay.
the IRA. because we were a small school and capable probably of winning that.
Right.
But it worked out that we didn't go for whatever number, and there could have been a multiple number of reasons, and all justifiable reasons. It just was kind of heartbreaking, and that's when I went back to Detroit, because Jan and her girlfriend had driven back, thinking that we would fly back and race, and then her folks still lived in Detroit. And I went back, and that's when I rode for Detroit. We actually won. Bill Maher, the gentleman who came out and sculled with John Nunn for the bronze medal in '68, was in that group, and he was in the 8. And we were in a 4 together. There was a Cornell guy who stroked Cornell, and a couple of Detroit guys, and myself. And in the Nationals in the straight 4, we finished second, but we were the first United States boat to cross the line because the Canadian Olympic team, Campbell and his gang, just beat us. And they won an Olympic medal also.
Oh, wow.
So we had borrowed the Harvard 4. It was a brand new Pocock. But then when the trials came up, Harvard didn't get eliminated, and we had this little beat-up boat. And we should have raced in the beat-up boat, but the coach arranged for another boat because he thought psychologically we thought we needed a different boat. The second boat was even worse.
Oh.
And then Ted Nash and his group won again. Interesting note, Ted Nash's birthday, and well, Harry's birthday is October 28th, Ted's 29th, mine's the 29th, and Vinny Ventura's the 29th. We were all roommates in '76.
76?
Yeah. Too bad it wasn't on our birthday. Huh?
Yeah.
Harry's always a day early.
All right. So you don't go to the so you go back and rode Detroit in summer of '62. Right. The best boat of best Long Beach boat to date was '62. But then you rode varsity '63 and '64, and you graduate in '64.
Yeah, I was captain in '63.
Okay.
And then that's when Reed joined us. I took Don's seat.
That's Reed Adler.
Oh, I'm sorry, Reed Adler, and wonderful rower. And I think we're going to go have a visit up in the Glacier in August.
See Reed?
He stayed here.
Good.
He visited a couple times this last fall.
So Reed was not in the '62 boat.
No,
he was in.
He wasn't even out for crew
Okay.
in '62.
All right. So in '63 and '64, you had good boats, but
yeah, they were good boats and bigger, stronger boats. Really good athletes, but absolutely nothing in comparison to the '62 crew in terms of swing and fight. The '62 crew had fight. Phil Bryson, you probably had to stand twice in the same place to cast a shadow. And Riley Neal was a great coxswain, physics major. And for me, of course, being a street kid and not growing up on the water, although we spent a lot of time fishing in little lakes up in Canada in the summertime, it was a marvelous experience.
Sure.
And it was almost like nirvana. I mean, it was like the moment was created just perfectly for me. It couldn't have been better.
Right.
And just really lucky to have just happened to fall through that window. And meet then later all these marvelous athletes that I coach. Really special.
John German was in that '62 boat.
Jumpin' John.
Jumpin' John. And John, I believe, was probably the first African American to row at Long Beach State.
I'm sure he was.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what previous when I was there during my tenure, surely.
One of the stories.
He was a football scholarship, actually.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay. And this was off season. This is what he did.
No,
during off
he
season?
chose not to.
Not to go for football.
Yeah.
Okay. Did
He rode the 7 seed.
Oh, was
the varsity with Gary Albright. Gary Albright was a marvelous athlete. I think we talked a little bit about his family and your family and my family in that same residence, but he could have lettered in anything: baseball, wrestling. He stroked that boat. And when we raced at Cal, and of course everybody thought we would win because the year before we had won by so much, and then we didn't have a good test because Neil got the measles. Then we went up there to win, and as a favor, my wife decided that she would take all my racing shirts and cut all the letters out of them and put them in a scrapbook And she thought it wouldn't mean any difference because we're going to win another Cal shirt anyway. And as a matter of fact, when she was up there and all the entourage that was following her, no one noticed that we didn't have a 7-man when we went by the boathouse. Because Coxon was just holding the oar, and John was missing. They had to pick him up at the launch.
Yeah, you want to go back to, so he broke an oar in the...
Oh, well, no, he didn't break it, no. He could have retrieved it. He just didn't stir the moment. What happened is, it's the estuary, and it could be anything floating. This was kind of, I'm not sure if it was a log. I think it was a piling or a railroad tie. And I touched it in the bow, and then the 3 touched it, and it was moving a little bit. And then finally, John's oar hit it, and it swung his oar around. And instead of fighting to get his oar and come back and finishing the race, because we still were in the race.
Right.
And we thought we would catch them, and we were going to run them down. That was our strategy, because it was a 2-mile race. And Gary said, I saw this thing fly past me, and I didn't know what it was. And then clearly it wasn't very long before we all knew that we had only 7 rowers.
7. So John got thrown out, or he just jumped out?
He just jumped out.
He just jumped out because he
just, he was in the 7th seat, and he actually jumped off Gary's side instead of his own side.
And the rules are you have to finish with 8. If you start.
Well, I don't know. I think if I would have been happy if we finished with 7. It wouldn't matter. A win is a win. As a matter of fact, one time John and I were in Europe. Where was this? Well, it might have been Munich. No, it wouldn't have been Munich because we were athletes. I don't quite remember. Oh, Canada, I guess. And the coaches all get together and have an old-timers race. And they had enough, I think we had 5 boats, but we only had 7 guys. But we beat everyone because we had even off, I don't know,
right.
you know that name.
No.
3-time Olympic gold medal in the single. 3 different Olympics. We had Huff and Johnson gold medals there. John and I gold medals there. And just all really good people. And Milk Bergen, the great double scull stood out, and Bergen came up and said the only reason he was actually in it, the only reason we won was you had 1 less old guy to fail. We had 7 guys to fail. So that's a 7-man story.
You more or less moved into the boathouse during the summer months, and you're.
Well, I never moved into the boathouse.
No, I mean, but you're spending your days there. You're working in the morning and take a nap, then you work out in the afternoon, and then you.
Well, more the summer days because I was working in the trade then and not at the college. I would just come after 4 o'clock and row. But I continued doing that, and then when I got the job, then I had afternoons off.
Okay.
And so I could row in the morning, I could row in the afternoon, and I could row in the evening, or I could, do the weightlifting and all of those. The worst sides of rowing out of the boat because I have all the agony and none of the ecstasy.
On the water, so you said you row very long, slow distance out around the oil rigs.
Yeah.
In the Long Beach Harbor.
Yeah, I would just.
Any interval training?
No, just get in the boat and row out around the oil island.
Okay.
And Karen alluded to that. Joan and I and Karen one time rowed to the Queen Mary in wherries, and she, when she mentioned that I only did the coaching launch. Yeah.
Coaching launch, yeah.
But and as a matter of fact, we almost got run over by a Coast Guard boat that was doing drills with the helicopter landing and then taking off the back. And they were coming right at us, and we barely got out of their way.
Oh my goodness!
And they weren't going to stop because they
didn't see you, or
well, I'm sure they had to see us. I probably think they figured we weren't stupid if we'd get out of their way.
Okay.
But the wakes were, we took on a lot of water.
Okay.
Yeah, and another time in the college we rowed over to see a race between USC and UCLA in the harbor, but we forgot to tell the coach. It was a Saturday morning.
Right.
And he had the Coast Guard out looking for us. And then we came in. And it was really glassy in the morning,
sure.
but it was just like a Santa Ana, and it was really rough
So he thinks you're out in the
He thinks we're
the
dead.
channel. He thinks you're dead, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Huh.
That's the only time I've seen Bill
Upset, livid.
lose it a little
Okay.
bit. Yeah. And it was totally stupid, but at the time, you know.
All right, we didn't have Nike Dry Fit. We didn't have sponsorships, and that came up in the hearing of the McCloskey interview. So you're going into '68, and you're down to the wire, and you get there's some.
Oh, there was you're talking about the protest, yeah.
You had been in a. I remember Dave Chaffee telling me once he spent a day taking an 8 out of the water and walking up the ramp, and they did that all day long for a commercial.
We did several of those.
Okay, were you in that?
No, not in that one.
Okay.
I was in one for Champale with both John Nunn and John Van Blom and Reed and
Okay.
I, and we did it as a quad with Coxon, which is a women's event.
Okay.
There was no quad
With the Coxon.
in the Olympic order then. It wasn't added to, and it was never with a Coxon. But we just did it off the dock and row and row and row. And so we did that. But the commercial that I got in trouble with was Pabst Blue Ribbon. Phil Bryson and I went up to Culver City to shoot on the same set where they shot the Dr. Kildare series and the Mutiny on the Bounty and all of those. It was a kind of a little man-made inland lake.
Okay.
It wasn't inside a studio, but it was up in Hollywood. And it was a sculling race, and we had the long sideburns, and it was old time. And it was a terrible windy day again, and I broke my riggers because we'd have to race like crazy, and then you'd have to stop before you hit the edge of this lake, which was concrete, before you'd wreck your boat. But anyway, it was for very little money, it seemed like at first, and we gave that money to the schoolboy rowing, which was part of what John was in.
So you didn't get it?
No, I did,
But you turned around and passed it through to the.
No, but then schoolboy rowing quit.
Okay.
And I don't know at what point they quit, but they weren't there anymore. And one day we got an envelope, and it was a New York ad agency, and I just threw it down. And of course, Jan opens everything, and she opened it. It was like a $1,500 check.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I called Phil. I said, "Did you get any mail today?" And he says, "No." I said, "Did you get an ad from New York?" "Yeah, I threw that away." I said, "Well, you better open it." And so he did. And so what happened is then in '68, we'd done our heat race and they'd done the repechage and then the semifinal, and I won the semifinal, John won the semifinal. And I went up to the finish line, and they came over very seriously and they said, the Olympic Committee has to meet with you on a very serious item about your amateur status. And of course, my heart just sunk, and I thought, because the Rowing Association had such a strict rule, because originally, before 1873, I think, or something like that, there was professional rowing, and it was a lot of betting and wire service, and it was all of it, like
before 1873.
1873.
1873.
After 1873, they started the Amateur Association.
Okay.
I maybe just made that number up.
Oh, all right.
But I think
It was a century ago.
Yeah.
All right.
If you believe it,
No, I do.
just
That's
good
fine.
as being true. So, but yeah, long enough ago. But they made that ruling so stringent. It said it receives money in any way. However, Bill Maher was in there. He was in the special services. Government was paying for absolutely everything in his life that year. John had done multiple things. One of the guys had written a book about rowing, which he made money. So there was nobody in there who was any less or more professional than I was. And if anything, I was at least, I had a job, I had a family. I wasn't living at the boathouse, but so they protested me and brought me in front of the committee at the boathouse at the lifeguard station there. And the finals was the next day. And they said, this is a very serious allegation, and we're going to talk about it, and we'll call you and tell you if you can race tomorrow. So I went home, I was all upset, and I didn't eat. My heart rate was way up. I was just nervous, and no call. Finally, it's in the evening, and Dick Kyle, who was a professor I told you about,
Right.
one of our best fans, called. He said, "What they said?" And I said, "No, everybody got off the phone." He said, "They're not going to call you now. If they didn't call you, they're not calling you." So he lived in Seal Beach, and he went over and talked to Dick Dunham, who was an athlete's rep. And Dick told him that there's no way they could keep me out of the race because they had to give me so many days to prepare a case and
okay.
whatever. And so he said, "You're in the race tomorrow." Well, this was late at night. It was like after 8 o'clock at night. And Laguna Niguel was so away from him. I had to get there. I hadn't eaten anything all day. And we went up and I got a steak up at Leisure World, which is the closest thing to where we were living. And that thing sat in my gut all night. So I virtually had a whole day of terror and trauma and then no sleep at night. And then I got lane 6. And John makes an issue of we were only a lane apart, but we were actually 2 lanes apart.
You were in lane 6 and he was in lane 3? Okay.
So, you know, a lane apart is next to each other.
Yeah.
And it was a quartering tailwind. And John again makes the argument that this is going to get all edited out.
What I want to get to actually is nowadays every sponsor, you know, old school was we were making our own, silk screening our own T-shirts. I mean, we were paying for our own trips everywhere.
Sure. That's why we had a credit union.
That's why we had a credit union, and so I just want that where I want to get today now is everything. All the good schools have scholarships for the big schools have scholarships for rowers, and then they have camps.
But you know, then school wasn't as expensive as it is now.
That's true too. That's true.
You know, when I was a non-resident from Michigan, it was $11 a unit. It was the same as USC, but then it was virtually free. You know, a couple $100. And
I guess Karen makes the question. You know, nowadays is it the same? You know, when they don't for the rowers to get sponsored.
I'll bet it's exactly the same. It's the competition.
Okay.
And everybody, I mean, yeah, when Uli and his partner won, he was living with his folks, she was living with his girlfriend. They couldn't get married because there wasn't room for them to move either place. You used to have to put full money down and it would take a year or more to get your car. And it was one of those terrible diesels that smoked and everything. When they won the double, which was the title we held, after we, it was actually 2 years after we had won, they got their own apartment, you know, overlooking the wall in Berlin. They got to get married. Now, that's the motivation.
Okay. I guess. Sorry.
You can get married and have your own place.
Have your own place.
Have your own TV and a car.
Okay.
And so it was a little different. Yeah. And for all the right and wrong reasons, it still was. I mean, it didn't occur to me that we couldn't beat them in spite of drugs, but I don't know that I believe that everybody was on drugs as much as they were given credit for, or discredited because of. But I think people today probably feel really good and don't feel. I mean, they still feel like they're sacrificing, probably. Maybe not the same as we were. Maybe our family, maybe the families. Well, probably a lot of the people aren't married, but the families probably felt that because they weren't getting the joy of the race and the whole inclusion of environment.
Right. Okay, 60. When I wrote, all right, from 68, 66, 65 through late 70s, early 80s, Long Beach produced a lot of great rowers.
Right up through, I mean, even in '88, we had the double.
Okay.
The Olympic double with the women. With
Olympic double.
What?
We're not. That's not the case now. One of the.
Well, no, there's some couple of good athletes in it. Well, I'm not sure where the Lofgren girl, but I thought there were a couple of good athletes. There was a young man that I remember Joan introduced me to one time, and he was, if not on the national team, in contention.
Contention for it? Okay.
Yeah. Of course, I totally dropped out and didn't I mean, I didn't talk, I still write long letters to people who were rowers.
Okay.
Well, now they're all emails.
Right.
But we never talked about rowing, unless it was sometime, remember Belgium or.
Right. Okay. I guess what I was going to ask is, you know, why did we produce so many international rowers, and then here we are in 2014. And,
Well, it was a perfect storm, first of all.
the college is a club sport, and we really don't have any. I don't know of any international other than the Masters. I mean, John and Jones still.
Well, there's a lot of people in that boat if you look at them.
Yeah.
I know Margie Tate and Jan
Right.
Koshikoff, and the ones that were active here in this picture.
With the younger crowd.
But but see, if you say to any of them, Bill Lockyer or George Pocock or
Right.
Stan Pocock, you know, Kai Ebright, or
They don't have a clue.
That level of dedication,
Right.
and the Major and Pete Archer, but especially Bill Lockyer, who was the guru, who was such a wonderful, humble man. And what they did is they provided the opportunity for us to find ourselves and to find our best. And I think we primarily fed off each other. I mean, there was day after day after day where John and I would go out and we would do 6 or 8 500 meters every day, every morning, and you would just be scrapping for an inch. And if you won the first one, you probably weren't going to win the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, my goal was to win the first one and the last one.
Okay.
But then John had a little advantage of me. He didn't have to go to work. I had to be at 8, so he would get there just in time so that we would only enough time for 6. And as I was coming in, he would do 2 more. And then I would go work out in the afternoon, and to tell whether he was working out, I would put a little piece of the Crisco oil on his oarlock. And then Bunny, the lifeguard there, I don't know if you remember Bunny.
Sure, I do. Yes.
And he told John I was doing this, so John would take it off. He would go out and row, and he'd come back and he'd put it back on. So when I came in the evening, I was looking and I'd say, "Oh, he hadn't rowed yet," but he was still. And what you got to remember is what an incredibly great athlete John
Oh,
was.
absolutely. Yes, yes.
I mean,
It was, still is.
And-
Yeah.
yeah. But at that age,
Right.
we're 10 years apart.
Sure.
And he just learned and learned and learned. When John Nunn beat him in the single for the Pan Am Games, came from behind to beat him, I'm thinking that he probably had in mind, that's never going to happen to me again. I'm going to be the one who's going to come from behind.
When I read The Amateurs many years ago, a book by Halberstam about rowing, it was pretty much a competition between 2 rowers after Dietz, 2 single scullers, one from Washington and one from back east. Yeah,
After Dietz?
yeah, it was because
There's nothing after Dietz.
there's nothing after Dietz.
I mean,
Okay.
probably the worst technique in the world, and they make a video, training video.
I don't know.
He was a wonderful, as a bubbly young kid, and he was strong.
You haven't read The Amateurs, then I take it, by Halberstam. All right, we'll do this the next time we do an interview. I'll get you a copy of that. You can read it. It's about 2 rowers in the competition for the single scull seat.
Is it a history or is it
It's
fiction?
No, it's nonfiction. It's history. It's
Embellished history?
It could be.
Probably.
You'll know
Well,
because you were there. Actually, Van Blum's is listed in that book as being in a 4.
High school?
No. This is the Olympics 70. What you
He was in a
said?
quad.
He was in a quad. Yes, I'm sorry, quad.
Yeah, he's been in the single, the double, the quad.
Okay, what was the last year he was in a quad? And was Dietz in that quad also?
Dietz was in the double, I think.
Okay,
I don't remember because we trained separately.
all right.
They were in Belgium, and we were at Ratzenberg.
Where I was going with this is that book's about the competition between these 2 single scullers with the seat. And when I'm reading that, I'm thinking, I'm reading this book on history, I'm thinking, Halberstam should have done '68, the competition between you and John.
It was really fierce. And
Yeah.
we were like best friends on the land and best enemies
In
on
the
the
water.
water. And I think we both were better because of each other.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And not just in terms of max VO2 or
Right.
weightlifting or anything like that, but just in understanding how to fight through pain
Right.
and how to have to eke out. And another time that happened is when John and I were training in the double and trained in Washington, D.C. with Larry Huffman and Tony Johnson.
Okay.
And that, I think, was even a step up in terms of difficulty between John and I, us against the pair, and we would give them the number of seconds head start based on international times, and then we would try to reel them in. And it was so fierce. And that year we both won gold medals.
All right, achievements. What, list them off.
Well, first of all, just the core of my energy that I built my life around was based on the teachings and thoughts of the old guys and what I was able to glean and learn, and then even harder to pass on to younger people. But in terms of achievements, certainly, if you just talk finishes,
Yeah.
Klagenfurt has to be up there. We win by almost 5 seconds,
Okay.
which is what in college you might call the curvature of the earth. And Henley,
Okay.
I was sick. We had to beat the English crew that had formerly been. They were out of retirement, but silver medals.
We discussed this earlier. Your teaching credential depended upon you getting
Oh yeah,
gold.
getting a gold medal.
Yeah.
And then we went from there over to Switzerland, and it was a difficult year for us because, you know, I talked to you about my back injury when I did the weightlifting thing, but then I was skiing, and we went with the ski team up to Park City, Jan and I, on the bus, and I got up there, and that was right after '69, and because of some other things we had not allowed, but they asked us if we could, and we told them, yeah, go interview the Austrians first, because they're the champions of Europe, and then they came back and interviewed us, and everybody downtown wanted to give us everything, you know, skis, boots, poles, and ridiculous. So I came home with giant slalom 210s, 15-degree forward lead boots and Bogners, and this is now in the fall, and it's Thanksgiving weekend, and we take the bus up to Park City, and just we get there at dawn, and then I get off the bus and I said, Jan, she's no, I'm going to bed. We've been up all night listening to Johnny Cash, and she said, I'm going to bed. She says, I hope you don't get hurt, but I wouldn't mind if you break a leg, because I don't want this to be another rowing.
Another rowing year.
you know,
Yeah.
because I actually thought I could be a skier.
Oh.
I mean, naive. Totally naive. Yeah, that's the thing you have to be born doing.
Yeah.
You got to grow up on the side of the
Side of
mountain.
the mountain, yes.